Okay, so we've had this basic piece built, and now we're going to pick back up on it. So what we're going to do here is we're going to pick the border around this to start fixing the outside part. So it's just going to cap that. Once I cap it, I'll be able to use a geo poly on it, which will make it completely round. Then I can kind of scale that out and then delete it. And it made that outside edge completely round. Now I can hold down my shift key and drag it out to make another piece. Hold my shift key, dragging back. Okay, do a little straighten it up. These should be approximately about the same thickness all the way around it. So just cleaning it up a little bit. Okay, that looks better. All right, that looks a little bit better. And let's clean up this side over here too. Okay, that looks better. All right, that's a pretty nice looking shape. Okay, this has got a little ridge going around it. So I think I'm going to put a little bit of a loop in here where I can pull that out. And so I'll select all those, hold my shift key, and then extrude this in just a little bit. And grab that edge and remove it. Control backspace. Okay, zero these out. And get me some locking loops. Those are fairly tight locking loops. That one's pretty tight too. We're in a tight area in here. So keep those fairly tight. Keep that edge pretty sharp. That looks pretty good. Okay. Okay, so now I want to put some locking loops on these. So I'm just double clicking on them. We'll put a locking loop there. Want those a little bit wider. And then you'll see there's some areas where they get a triangle, so we're just going to target weld those out of there. Just kind of distributing that. I want to try to make those so that they kind of have the same thickness all the way around. They don't have to be perfect, but we want it pretty close. Okay, so I want to target weld here. And I'm going to remove that one. That makes that a quad. Okay, target weld here. Okay. That one tightens that up pretty good. So it kind of has a billowy look now, but once I get all those tightened up all the way across it, then it'll fix that. Okay, so now I've gone in and I've done the crease around all the edges to hold their shape. You'll see it doesn't look as billowy now that I've put that in. Okay, so let's go ahead and name our piece so it's easy to pick it. So we'll call this our crankset. Okay, so now I want to go in and make the outside gear. So I'm going to make it out of a spline 2. And I need to count how many spokes are in here. Okay, 13. Okay, times 2 would be 26, times 2 would be 54. So 54. So I'm going to come in with a spline. I'm going to create a star. Need to have my grid points checked, so I put it right in the center. And I'm making a star. And then I'm going to tell it 54 points. Okay, and then I'm going to adjust these points. Now I'm going to come in and chamfer these, so I want them to kind of be pretty much kind of centered to where they need to be as far as the center of the arc. And once I get that, I'm going to go ahead and convert that to editable spline. Now I'm going to come in and select all the vertices. Control, I just select them all, and then I'm making corners out of those. So now I'm going to change my selection to a circle, and I'm going to click to select the center vertices. Make sure I get all the center vertices picked. Then I'm going to zoom in here, and I'm going to do a chamfer. Then I just click on one of them, drag, and I can chamfer that out. That's going to be the base. That's going to be the places between the spokes. Okay, and then it'll make beziers of those. So Control A and turn them to corners again. So now I'm going to pull out and select those and then invert it. Control I, which will give me my outside vertices. Then I'll come into those and I'll chamfer again. And that's going to give me my peaks. Something like that. Okay, so now I'm going to pick it and I'm going to scale it, hold down the shift key, and I'm going to make a copy inside of that. So I have the one I made on the outside and then a copy. So you see the two here. And before I attach them, I'm going to take the inside one and I'm going to put a modifier on it, and I'm going to put one called Spherify. Spherify will make it into a circle. So what it's doing is it's taking all the vertices that were in the first one and it's making those into a circle, but it's leaving those. So now what I'm going to do is just scale it a little bit. So I get it about where I want it so that the thickness of the gear is about what I want. Then I'm going to attach them together so they're one spline. Then I'm going to do my cross section between the two. So click on outside to inside or inside to outside, doesn't matter. And then that's going to create quads with all of those. Then I put a surface modifier on that so that it becomes a three-dimensional shape. I need to go ahead and put a basic gray shader on it. And then I may need to flip the normals. If it's still black after you put your shader on it, then click the flip normals. I need to make sure I have 0 steps and 0.001. Otherwise, it'll kind of weld it together. Now I'm going to put a shell modifier on it to give it thickness. And then you just have to eyeball it how thick you want. But I'm going to subdivide this, so I'm going to put 2 segments in here, which will help it hold its shape. Then I'm going to put a turbo smooth on it, but I'm going to do it with smoothing groups, to where you can do that with the mesh smooth too. And then I'm going to put a second one on with 2 iterations with the smoothing groups off. And then that'll kind of round that. And that'll give me my gear shape. Yay! A gear. Okay, so from the front, there we go. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is there's a cut from the inside of this piece to the outside. And so I'm creating, there's 5 spokes. So I'm creating an end-gon with 5 sides, and then I'm going to rotate it, and it'll be 18% on the y-axis. So what I'm making here is a guide to follow to cut this piece. And then I can adjust its radius. I want it to be right in the center of that little section right there is where I'm going to cut it. Okay, so I turn off my mesh smooth, go down to the polygons. Now, oops, let's go back to my rectangular selection. It's going to cut the polygons I have selected. So I'm going to select all of these sections and I'm going to cut through here. Okay, there we go. And then I'm going to use a quick slice. Quick slice, you put a point, then you drag across and click another point, and it cuts across there. Point, 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 point. Okay. Click, and then click on the other side. It's cutting it. I know you can't see it, but it is. And then click, oops, that's got in the wrong place. Right click to stop. Go again. And click. Okay, that cut those. So now we'll hide that end-gon. You can see those cuts in there. Now if I go to my edge selection, they're already selected. And now what I want to do is to extrude those. Okay, you'll want to zero both of these out. Extrude it out a little bit. And then you'll do a negative on this to do a little indentation. And then you're going to go up here and click split, which will actually cut it. So now this inside piece is separate from the outside pieces, and it's got our little indentation where those are put together. Okay. Okay, so that gave us our little cuts. All right, we have some little rivets that rivet this outside metal piece to the gear. So let's talk about going in and cutting that in. Let's do the one over here on the right. Okay, so I'm going to use this edge. Now swing around. I need to click that. Okay, those right there. And then I'm going to chamfer those. Got to make sure you don't have any constraint on when you do this. And you got to make sure that that point doesn't hit that inside edge. Something like that. Okay, I need to delete this one. All right, I'm going to do a little inset to get me my locking loop. So we'll pick these. Do an inset. Okay. And I delete everything but the top piece. Need those little tabs deleted also. Okay, and then I need to make sure I also grab these little inside pieces. Okay, there we go. And I want to move this, holding down the shift, and I'm going to have my axis constraints on. And pull out, click on that vertex, and that'll slide that down. Align that up. Okay, then I need to get a loop in here to match with the one that's on the outside. And then I need to come in and weld these little points. And try weld. I can't, instead of doing that threshold, I'm just going to go ahead and just target weld these. There's only 4 of them. So let's just do a target weld. Okay, and then when I did the initial weld, it welded the outside ones, but then I had to target weld those inside ones. All right, so I'm picking these edges, and then I'm going to connect those with one connection down the center. This will allow me to give me some extra points in here to hold this round shape. So I'm going to scale these from their common center. And then I want to move these from the common center. Oop, don't have a snap on. Turn your snap off. And there we go. And that's pretty close right there to the shape I need. Then I need to make quads of this. So I need to connect these points. And connect these points. Okay, and that'll hold my shape pretty good. And there's that little notch cut in there, so we can end up putting a rivet in there. Like so. Okay, and of course I would need to do that in some other places around the piece also, but that's how you do that. Now, the next thing we need to do is to cut a hole in for these little screws that go in here that hold this secondary gear in. So I'm just going to do a chamfer on this point. It'll be an odd shape, but then we're going to do a quadify mesh on it. I'm sorry, not a quadify, but a geopoly rather. So we do a geopoly on it. I might want to rotate it. Really doesn't matter because in the end it's going to be round. Okay, then I go to edges, I connect that. And then I right click and go into my scale properties, and then the magic number is 142%. There we go. Okay. And I think what I'm going to do on this one is take that a little bit. Okay, and then I'm going to, I need to get rid of those inside edges, so I'm just going to backspace those out of there. So now I can go back to that polygon, then I can do an inset, get a locking loop around it. Okay, pull into the 3D view. I'm going to do an extrude just a little bit in to get a locking loop, and then extrude again to get some depth, and extrude a little bit more to get a locking loop around the edge, and then an inset. And then I want to make this quads inside, so I can pick 2 points and connect those to make it a quad. It doesn't matter which two, as long as they're across from each other. Do the same thing again. And then those are quads in there. So now I just need to connect these outside pieces. I don't like that long skinny poly, but it'll probably be okay. Okay, then there's my little inset that I'll put a little bolt in there. Okay, and then I'll need to do that on each one of those sections going around it. So I'll have those holes all the way around, and then I need to cut those little, for those rivets around the outside all the way around it too. And then there's my little gear, and then I'd use that same technique to make the gear, the second gear that's on the inside. Make it the same way as this one. You can't just scale this one down because it's got different amount of gears on it. So you'll do another one just like that one on the inside for the secondary one. Okay, hope that helps you out. Thank you very much.